Welcome back to the 10 of Swords right here at Comicstorian. This is where we take your favorite comic books, we break them down into digestible bites, and I read them dramatically back to you, giving you a synopsis of your favorite comic books and helping you keep up with your favorite storylines. Today we're going to be covering the X of Swords chapters 5 through 8. I'll be reading off individually what each of these issues are, but they're everyone involved in the X-Men event getting their weapons, proving that they can battle against it. Let me give you a quick recap. The X-Men are currently on an island known as Krakoa, and there's a different island known as Arakko. Apocalypse's children are on Arakko, and they want to invade Krakoa and conquer it. But at the same time, Apocalypse wants to bring Arakko to Krakoa to merge them and bring them together again. This has led to a tournament of sorts being set up so that various individuals can battle and decide who should be the winner of this entire thing. Should it be Arakko winning over Krakoa or Krakoa winning over Arakko? We are now at the point in the storyline where various individuals are acquiring swords which prove they are worthy to enter this battlefield. Which brings us to today's issue. Storm stands ready. The gardens of Krakoa are around her as she thinks about Lorna's prophecy and what it means. Thought I'd find you here. You tend to surround yourself with green whenever you have something weighing on your mind. Kitty Pryde, dressed in her marauder's finest, tells her as she steps through the gate behind Storm. Kitty looks at Storm, questioning whether she understands the prophecy and knows where her sword is. Yes, I do. But I do not know if I am ready for what taking it will mean, Storm tells her. Kitty questions her further, asking what could taking that sword mean? The end, I think. Heartache and strife, at least. Storm sighs heavily, and Kitty nods, but then smiles, asking her friend to let her come along. Add her cutlass to her fight. But Aurora tells her that she must do this alone, and after stepping through the gate, she thinks back on the history that she knows. The history of Wakanda. They say it began with a blinding light, with the sky splitting open and striking a sacred mountain. The ancestors of Wakanda found a metal so pure that touching it in its raw form was to know the truth of the universe. The first king of Wakanda forging it into a mighty weapon that would speak with a boom of thunder. He called this sword the Skybreaker, and it was passed from king to king, protector to protector. Studying the metal allowed Wakanda to advance in science and technology, pushing Wakanda into the future, making it the country that it is today. And in the present day, Storm is ushered into the throne room, greeted by the Queen Mother and Shuri. She hugs her former mother-in-law, greeting her with a warm smile. Where is the king? She questions, but the Queen smiles, telling her that once again, Black Panther has been called away. Shuri steps forward, smiling. What brings you to Wakanda, Storm? Are you here as a sister or as a diplomat for Krakoa? Storm stands before them, quickly filling them in on the situation with Krakoa and Arakko. If Krakoa falls, then the world will fall, Storm tells them. The Queen nods, telling her that they will send warriors from Wakanda to aid the Krakoans. But Storm tells them that they can only have their champions with their own swords. Which brings her here today. Shuri exclaims that they will make her a sword with whatever specification she needs, but the Queen shakes her head, knowing that a contest of this type requires weapons with history, and offers Storm the strongest weapons within the Wakandan armory. Storm lowers her eyes, telling the Queen Mother that she requires the Skybreaker. But the Queen and the Princess look shocked as they lean forward. You know that's impossible, the Queen whispers, and the Queen and Princess explain that they would have rioting in the streets. The others would use this as an excuse to try and overthrow the government. And Storm pleads with them, but the Queen finally puts her hand up to silence her and explains that they will have to wait for T'Challa, who will return within the next few days. Until then, you will be our honored guest, of course, the Queen states. Storm bows, thanking her former mother-in-law. But Shuri looks at Aurora with suspicion. That night in her stately apartment, Storm reaches into the bag that she brought with her. She says that she knows what she has to do, and pulling out her black uniform, she quickly changes and leaps into the night sky, lightning flashing in the distance as she flies over the Wakandan capital. Memories of T'Challa showing her the temple of the heart of Wakanda flashed through her mind. She was queen, and he explained the history of the Skybreaker and the defenses that had been put in place to protect the ancient weapon, which had become a sacred symbol of their people. Lightning cracks from her hands, destroying the perimeter drones that guard the temple walls, overloading the generators, plunging the interior into darkness, allowing her to sneak on the priests that guard the interior corridors. One tries to stop her, swinging his staff as a weapon, but Storm dodges quickly, kicking the man hard in the face, leaving him unconscious on the floor. Inside Skybreaker's chamber itself, she uses a freezing storm to cover the laser sensor that acts as the last line of defense for the weapon, and she pauses, hoping that the screeching sirens and closing doors will not greet her as the lasers are deactivated. Silence fills the room, and floating upward, she holds up a replacement sword, hoping that it will give her the extra time to escape. But the laser shoots out, knocking the sword out of her hand. Hoping that my intuition was wrong, and I would not find you here, Shuri tells her, dressed in full battle armor. Storm floats down, meeting her former sister. Stand aside, Princess Shuri, she orders, but the princess shakes her head. You know I can't. If you take Skybreaker, it will cause strife among the people. Brother will fight brother, all because you could not wait for T'Challa, Shuri tells her, but Storm prepares to fight, knowing that she doesn't have time. You are my sister, Shuri. I'm sorry that it has come to this, Storm tells her. She launches herself at the princess, trading blows with Shuri, pleading with her to give up this course of action. But Storm explains that she is trying to save them all as she kicks and blocks another blow from Shuri's power glove. Another icy storm kicks up, freezing Shuri's gauntlets quickly. But the young woman throws them aside, pulling free a blade. You underestimate me, sister. You forget that I have worn the mantle of protector as often as the inventor, she snaps, and Storm retrieves her own sword from where it has fallen. I will ask one final time, Shuri. Stand down. Help me save us all. Storm commands as the blades clash. Moving across the room, the steel ringing against steel. But with a flash, Shuri disarms Storm and points her sword at her. You will come back with me to the palace at once, and together we will speak to T'Challa. I'm sorry, sister. Storm whispers as she reaches out, touching the tip of the blade. Lightning coursing through the metal, ripping into Shuri's body, throwing her to the ground. Storm floats back up with the Skybreaker, quickly replacing it with a blade of her own. But the sensors are strong, and the building quickly locks down. She escapes through the corridors, blasting through the doors that block her path. Robotic sentries attacking her next, and with anger filling Storm because she has finally had enough, she combines her own lightning with that of the Skybreaker, cutting the robots quickly. Once outside the temple, she moves towards the Krakoan gate quickly. But there, blocking her way, stands T'Challa with an assortment of gods. My mother said you came claiming to be in need of aid. And yet, here you are, stealing from those who welcomed you, the king tells her as rain pours from the sky. Storm lands before him, telling him that she has no time. The guards raise their weapons, seeing the woman who carries the Skybreaker. And T'Challa raises his hand and tells them to stand down. He removes his helmet, questioning why she would betray him like this. This has nothing to do with us. I am here to save my people, Storm tells him. She becomes angry, telling him to step aside or it will be the end of everything, and T'Challa nods, ordering his soldiers to move, but as she passes them, he puts a hand on her shoulder. We could have done this together, my love. I would do anything for you. This is bigger than you and I, T'Challa. Bigger than Wakanda and Krakoa. And I could not wait for you to decide if you had the time. As she leaves, T'Challa puts on his helmet and orders the guards to destroy the gate. If the emissary of Krakoa wishes to return, it will not be as a thief in the night, but with the permission and grace of Wakanda, if we so choose. Storm returns to the seal of Krakoa, knowing what she has lost, but also knowing who she is and what she would do for her people. She places the Skybreaker against the seal, allowing her spot to start glowing. Never doubted you for a second, darling. Wolverine nods to her. Welcome to the party. Magic smiles. Empath punches his way free of a Krakoan egg. He crawls out, covered in thick yolk of the egg itself. And Professor Xavier reaches down, placing the mutant's memories back in his mind. Where the hell am I? Empath shouts angrily. What's your name, child? What's your name? Keep your freaking hands off me! Empath continues to shout, and Xavier finally turns away, asking Hope to finish for him. Empath continues to be angry, demanding to know why he died, but Hope doesn't know either. And with Empath's angry question, the young mutant decides to leave him alone. A short while later, the Quiet Council has gathered. They discuss the relevance of the coming contest, and with Kitty finally asking whether they should do something to aid Krakoa. Sinister finally smiles and stands. Let's have everyone's attention on me, please. The heroes of Krakoa and Arakko are traveling the globe in search of their swords now, looking for their champions. What if we denied the Iraqi that privilege? What if we let my Hellions do what we do best? Lie, cheat, steal until the Arakko's swords are ours. How will they challenge us with no challengers? Force a forfeit? Emma muses. You see, Emma loves it! Sinister shouts with glee. Although someone should tell her face, he continues to whisper. The council brings it to a vote, finally deciding to go forward with Sinister's plan. Bennett smiles next, agreeing that the Hellions will head into Otherworld, where the challenge should be hosted, and that Sinister would lead them there. Wait, what was that last part? Sinister asks, the smile draining from his face. The council votes again, but this time only 4 hands are raised. Oh, thank God! Sinister whispers, believing that he'll be staying behind, the Master Mutant telling the Council that he'll need the full team, including Havoc. He smiles as he leans over Magneto's desk. I heard about your little trip to Otherworld, following your daughter like a puppy dog. I'm beginning to think that she's a bad influence. He smiles. Eric stares at him for a second. I'd like to change my vote, he says to the Council. A short while later, Psylocke and Havoc are briefing the Hellions on their mission, explaining that if they are captured, the world will probably end. Havoc steps forward, telling them that death and Otherworld means they won't be coming back either. You'll be jazzed to know that Empath made it under the wire, Grey Cal. He'll be joining us. Alex says to his teammate who recently had shot Empath in the head. The group begins to argue, but Alex interrupts him. Remember that no one comes back if we die in Otherworld. We all understand that, right? Alex asks. In his chambers, Sinister finishes telling his freshly thawed clone what his mission is. But the clone doesn't think that he should be the one to have to go. So the two settle it with the only way that they know how. Winner keeps the cape, they say as they begin to play rock, paper, scissors. The team gathers at the Avalon Gate with the Empath asking which one of them got him killed last time. Remember Grey Cal's warning to not use your powers to manipulate the team? That's an important thing to remember, Psylocke tells him. Empath stops, draping his arm over Grey Cal's shoulder. Did you shoot me in the head? He demands to know. I did. Do it again and I'll cut you in half, Grey Cal warns him. They're all interrupted as Sinister strides towards them, rambling through a few lines of an inspiring speech. Speech out of the way! Everyone's up to speed, right? Let's get moving. We have swords to steal, he says quickly. Psylocke comes forward, shocked that Sinister is coming with them. Coming with you? Cute way to put it. No, I'll be leading you into enemy territory, he tells her before turning to the rest of the team. As your general, jockeying for my affection is encouraged. Favoritism is rampant and arbitrary, he tells the team. He steps through the portal into the throne room of Avalon. Sinister begins to announce himself, but is interrupted by King Jamie Braddock, who is continuing to yell at a beautiful horse and the peasants trying to get it under control. Down, Princess Silvermane! You said you weren't equestrian, Mumford! You said that you were raised around horses! Jamie shouts. I said no such thing! Mumford whispers as he fights to keep the horse under control. Jamie finally looks up, shocked at how amazing Sinister's cape is, the king using this moment to announce their intentions about journeying into Otherworld. But Jamie sighs, telling them that Saturn IX won't allow it. There would be trouble and we can't have that, or fun either, not anymore apparently. But Sinister steps forward, explaining to Jamie that the mutants who die in Otherworld do not come back. He tells the king that he can help him, give him clones. And Jamie nods, agreeing that such an arrangement would be advantageous to both parties. But surely we must seal our bargain by exchanging our gifts. Mumford, bring the princess! Jamie shouts, leaning back against his throne. The horse continues to fight as Jamie offers it to Sinister to seal their deal. And what will you give me in return? The king questions with a smile on his face. Zero, nothing. I don't want the horse, Sinister tells the king, glaring. But Jamie leans forward, his smile disappearing as he explains, we can't seal our bargain with gifts, then perhaps I will have to tell Saturn IX about your arrival in Avalon. What do you want, Braddock? Sinister sighs. A short while later, the team is walking through the local market with Sinister stomping angrily ahead, capeless. Slow down, Essex, Psylocke calls out. You look fine, Havoc adds, trying to help. I don't want to talk about it, Sinister snaps. And as the team continues forward, they suddenly are ordered to halt. You have transgressed against her luminance, Opal Luna Saturn IX. The guard bellows, with Sinister stepping forward, trying to soothe the situation, but the guard points to Princess Silvermane. You stand in possession of stolen property, the blessed steed of the queen herself. Anger flashes through Sinister as he realizes what Jamie Braddock did to them. And he leans over to Empath, ordering the mutant to take control of the guards. Nah, I'm good. Empath smiles. The group begins to argue, but then they're interrupted when the guards order them to their knees. Sinister looks at Empath, telling him that he can have anything he wants. I'll do it if you make Grey Crow my pet, he says with a smile. Cut in half it is. Grey Crow snarls as he draws his sword. The mutant charges, but Sinister tells Empath that he has a deal, and suddenly, Grey Crow snaps into a smile. You are one radiant soul, he tells Empath. The guards suddenly smile too, turning away from the group, but Sinister smiles, pointing out that they could use some horses for their journey. A short while later, the team is riding through the city. This adventure is going to end badly, Psylocke tells Essex. Don't they all, dear? Sinister notes, laughing as he charges ahead on his horse. Magic sits at the seal, the sun setting in the horizon, as she reaches for her communicator, calling up Cable and Cyclops. The two mutants appear before her as holograms. Kind of in the middle of something, Ileana. Can this wait? Cyclops asks her. She nods, but turns to Cable, telling him that they need him on Krakoa and he needs to bring his nifty little space sword. Is that bad? Cyclops asks, and the team leader nods, telling her that they'll be back as quick as they can. Maybe we'll make some plans, Magic asks. Never know. It could rain, Cyclops tells her. Understood. She nods, and with that she signs off. Elsewhere, Cypher looks up. I'm gonna die, he whispers, sitting across from Warlock with Krakoa behind him. He questions why he would be chosen to fight, the deeper meaning behind him and Warlock being in this tournament, when Warlock transforms into a sword and wraps around his arm. Cypher then heads into the woods to train. But he's interrupted by Magic. First lesson, make sure you bring a sword to a sword fight, she tells him as they begin their training. They clash, with Cypher doing everything that he can to dodge her strikes, but he blocks another blow and receives a kick to the face. Ow! He groans from the ground. Magic stabs her sword into the earth next to his face and sits on his chest, reminding him that if he dies in Otherworld, he won't get to come back. Later, Sinister leaves the council chamber on his mission with the Hellions, while Cypher argues with Krakoa. Professor Xavier interrupts them, asking what that issue is, and Cypher climbs down, explaining to Xavier that Krakoa suggests that someone else takes Cypher's place in the tournament. He explains that Krakoa is worried that if Cypher dies, he'll have no voice to the mutants. But the rules have been set, and I was chosen, Cypher states stubbornly. I need to show everyone that I'm not just a translator. I want to go. I want to prove myself. Xavier smiles, telling him that he hopes none of the mutants will have to put their lives on the line. Let us hope that Sinister is successful in ending this before it starts, Xavier tells the young mutant. Later, Cypher's training continues and he blocks another of Magic's blows, smiling at her. But she swings, pushing him away. Don't smile at me. You're clumsy. Your stance is a disgrace. Your balance is worse. Have you not been practicing? She snaps at him. But he laughs, blocking another blow, only to be punched in the face. Suddenly, vines shoot out of the water, wrapping her up. Cypher, tell the island to let me go. It's not helping you by interfering. It will not be there to coddle you in battle, she snaps. Krakoa releases her and Magic decides that it is enough for the day. You know, I'm just trying to keep you alive, she tells the young mutant. She puts away her sword, turning her back on her friend. And when the fighting starts, stay close to me. I'll do what I can, she tells him as she stalks away into the woods. But Krakoa still worries that Cypher will die, that it will no longer have a voice, and Cypher finally stands before the great tree that represents the island. I know you're afraid for me. I know that I may not return, and I'm terrified. But you have to let me do this, he tells Krakoa. A short while later, Magic launches herself at Cypher. He dodges, slashing at her with an impressive strike. We might make a warrior out of you yet, she tells him as he avoids another of her blows. He explains that he can read her body language and know when her attacks are coming, and they clash again, and Cypher realizes. You're holding back. You're letting me win. Why? You've gotten better. I'm proud of you, she tells him. You think I have a chance? Cypher asks her, and Magic stares at him for a moment before asking if he wants the truth. If you raise that sword to fight someone in Otherworld, it'll be the last thing you ever do. But there's not a damn thing you can do to stop it, she tells him. So they step through the portal, and Cypher puts his blade against the seal as the others watch him. Scott, Jean, and Cable are walking through the corridors of the sword station that they activated at the end of our last episodes. Are you feeling anything? Scott asks. No, Cable answers. I was asking the telepath of the family. I'm a telepath, Cable huffs. You don't practice enough, Scott tells his son. And Jean finally asks them to be quiet, telling them that the background interference is stopping her from reading. So they split up, searching the station for a crew. As Scott and Cable move through the corridors, they discuss whether Scott should take his son's place in battle, about what kind of people would let their children fight wars for them. And finally, they come across a large door that is hastily wielded shut. Cutting through it with his optic blast, Nate steps in front of his father. I'm already a warrior. And what the hell? Cable hisses as he stares into the dark room. Both mutants stare up at the object as Scott calls to Jean. Jean, we found something in Science Lab 14 you should see, he tells his wife. She lets him know that she'll be there shortly as she continues to move through the station, pushing a button on the wall, and the doors slide open to reveal a man. Hello, she says simply, and the man has his back to her, looking out into the vastness of space. You turned it back on, didn't you? You powered the station back on. Why would you do that? The man asks. Why wouldn't we? Where is everyone? Jean asks him. The man begins to ramble, telling her of the noises that they heard, the screams. Half the station was dead before we could regroup. Half of them are gone, like they never existed. They were the lucky ones. Death would have been better. He tells her as he turns, his eyes dark and shallow, staring at her sightless. Who did this to you? Jean whispers. But the man tells her that it wasn't a who, it was a what. That they weren't prepared for the enemy that wasn't bound by their laws of physics. She tries to reach into his mind to see what happened, but he pushes back, and it hits her hard. But in a flash, she sees all. Now you know. the man tells her, reaching out for the lever release of the airlock. She screams, but the man is sucked out into the vastness of space. She rushes through the station, telling her husband and son not to open any doors, and she finds them in the lab staring at the glowing gate. What's on the other side? Cable questions, and they all look at it. Faceless death, something called the Vescora, Jean tells them, and as if on cue, the door activates and 3 creatures come through. Cleanse, dissect, learn, they chorus. All 3 mutants open fire with their powers and weapons, and the creatures fall, but more continue to come through, replacing those that have been lost. We've got to kill the power of this station. You've got to remove the sword from the igniter, Jean tells her son. Cable nods, rushing out the door, and as he leaves, Jean projects her mind, wishing to see through the door. The darkness permeates on the other side, and the Vescora surge forward, coming from a dark station. She rocks back to her physical body, looking up at her husband. Don't hold back, Scott, she whispers, as the Vescora begin to flood out into the chamber. As you wish, he nods, opening fire with his optic beams. They continue to fire, both blasting away at the invading creatures, until finally Cable reaches the igniter and pulls his sword free. The station goes dark. You guys okay? He calls out in the darkness. Yeah. Great job. Proud of you, son. Later, Cable steps through the gate, putting his sword on the seal, causing it to light up. As Cyclops and Jean come through the gate, Magic looks at them telepathically, and they discuss what they can do about this tournament. Scott tells Magic that they need to work on communication and transportation, and Jean tells Magic to look after their son. Happy to. Magic smiles. Scott nods, putting his hand on his son's shoulder, telling him that if he needs them, just call. Why are you smiling? Cable asks. Because we're going to be okay, Scott tells him. And that brings us all the way up to Chapter 8 of the Ten of Swords saga, storyline, whatever you want to do. As you can tell right now, they're breaking off into a bunch of littler storylines telling us how they're each getting their swords. And if you want to know how we got to this point, like what's going on with Krakoa, Apocalypse, his kids, all that stuff, check out the earlier 2 episodes in this saga. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, as we'll be doing this every Monday. Next Monday, we'll bring you the next 10 of Swords chapter. King of Black should have already started. That's going to be rolling out very soon. And don't forget, we're covering DC's Death Metal and Endless Winter when we get to them. Keywords being when we get to them. Also bringing back Spider-Man this weekend. I'll see you guys real soon. Thank you so much for your support. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, come back next Monday for the next 10 of Swords, and check us out on Patreon. Patreon.com/Comicstorian for early access to a lot of our products, to a lot of our podcasting, and our D&D games. Thank you so much. I'll see you all next time.